Well, all right, let's get started. Welcome uh, all to the 2020 Small Urban Network Conference hosted by the Community Transportation Association of America. I'm Scott Bogren. I'm the executive director here at CTAA, and coming to you live from my now feeling like 5 months in this room, my den. I think I speak for all of my colleagues at CTAA. We would much rather be in Missoula, Montana right now, but here we are in our quarantine offices instead. But welcome, and we are excited about the next 2 days worth of sessions. And this is our 6th Sun Conference, which is hard for me to believe. I remember when we were kind of dreaming a lot of this up years ago. You know, this is obviously our first virtual one, and we do hope that next year we will be in Missoula, Montana. I'll give you the dates and we'll share those August 11th through the 13th, 2021. One of the things that I wanted to, as we start off here through the welcome, we came to the conclusion in June that we were going to have to do this kind of virtually, but we also, as a staff, came to the conclusion that we really need to get this group together. There are a lot of issues facing small urban transit providers around the country right now. We're going to touch on a lot of those, but the overriding goal for us and objective was to get us together as a group. About the Sun Network, that is a subset of CTA's membership. We formed this at a meeting in 2012 at our expo in Albuquerque. And the idea was to put together a membership group for small cities, populations between 50,000 and 200,000, and then also to be able to serve our members who are largely or exclusively providing their transportation services in a fixed route way. So that was kind of where we started. The conference has always been a kind of casual, peer-to-peer, conversational conference, and one that really focuses on trying to provide practical information to you, what has up till now been managers of these systems. We try to do kind of nuts and bolts. We've talked about varying aspects, operational aspects of your services. We've done a lot on legislative and trying to set the priorities for CTA when it comes to legislation here in Washington, regulatory relief, funding opportunities, all of those things. We use our Sun group as the place to talk and listen to priorities. A little trivia for you this week. You're going to hear from all 3 mountain lines. Yes, Missoula is mountain line, but so is Flagstaff and Morgantown. The general managers of all those systems will be joining us, and we're excited. This is, you know, we're doing this virtually using Zoom, and we're also using a meeting format. So let me just give you some of the parameters on kind of how we want these sessions to run. Again, this is a meeting format, not a webinar format. So though you are all muted upon entry, hopefully throughout the week, when we get to dialogue, you'll be able to take yourself off mute, ask a question, put yourself back on mute. And so as best we can, using you know, the limitations of the virtual software that Zoom is, to converse and to interject and to add to a discourse here. You know, the chat box that is at the bottom of your screen, that's the place where we want you to put those questions. As well, keep an eye on that, because throughout the sessions, we're going to be posting documents and links, trying to take best advantage of a virtual conference. And, you know, there is some interesting aspects to the conference being virtual and some kind of pros and cons. We've never before been able to do specific breakout sessions for other employees at your agencies. And the Zoom format allows us to try that. So you're going to see in this next round of sessions for general managers and board members, sessions for maintenance, for communications, for HR, for finance, to allow, hopefully, others at your staff to be able to benefit from what we've always benefited from at the Zoom conference. You'll also see we get, I think, a much broader participation here in the conference. We have over 300 people registered in varying ways. We don't expect 300 people to show up at any one session, but throughout the week, we should be seeing those. And, you know, let's make this a kind of an interactive and participation. The cons of this are, I think, just as obvious. I don't know about you, but I think we're all a little weary of Zoom meetings. And so you're going to see we try to keep these to 1 hour chunks. And the reason we're trying to keep these to 1 hour chunks is to reduce the Zoom fatigue and allow you to be able to have a half an hour break in between or a 15-minute break in between. These meetings can get long and a little create a little weariness. So we're going to try to work that through. Again, you're all muted on entry. One of the obvious cons to these meetings is when folks don't mute, and we get to hear, you'll probably hear while I'm hosting sessions, I have 2 dogs, and they are either sleeping all day or barking at something and interrupting me. So hopefully you won't hear that, but let's try to keep on mute. And I think most of the thing we're missing right now is just the personal contact and the face-to-face interactions that have been the hallmark of this set of meetings, but I think are also really at the heart of how CTAA likes to engage with its members. Phone calls, emails, and virtual meetings are nice, but nothing really substitutes for that face-to-face. And, you know, we're all looking forward to a time when we can do that again. I'd also like to point to all of the sponsors who have stepped up and helped support the Sun Conference this year. Curus Decontamination, Echolane, GMV Synchromatics, Route Match by Uber, and TripSpark Technologies are all going to be partners in what we present this week. It's a real great group of sponsors that really have products and services that we think can benefit you out there in the field. And I do hope that whether it's during the sessions where we'll see some input from our sponsors, or in the breaks and the kind of networking events that you'll see scheduled between events, that you'll give them a little of your time, because they have, as we said, been so gracious to support us. And we do believe that there will be benefit for you as systems. Let's talk about the agenda real quickly. It's 2 days. Those of you, and I saw some familiar names in the list of participants who've been to past Sun conferences, know it has always been 2 days, but we've done it across 3. So we've tended to have a tour of the host agency, which would have been our friends at Mountain Line in Missoula today, or yesterday on Wednesday afternoon. Thursday is a full set of sessions, and then there's a half day of kind of legislative and regulatory discussions, and ideally some setting of priorities in those areas on day 3. This is a little different, but still, you're going to see the breakout sessions, some topic-based sessions today. You'll also see we do have a tour scheduled, which I'll talk about in a little while at the end of the day today. I watched that video yesterday. It's outstanding. I think you'll really get something out of that tour. And then tomorrow we're going to return and we're going to talk legislation. We have an FTA keynote, and really we've got some of the real key leadership at the Federal Transit Administration. They're going to join us tomorrow in Matt Welbus, Henrika Buchanan, and Bruce Robinson. So those questions you've had about the FAQs and the way the CARES Act funding has been implemented, or kind of some of the ways that regulations are being dealt with during this pandemic, they are going to be here to answer those questions tomorrow. And we're excited for that. So that's kind of our schedule for the next couple of days. Some of the topics that you're going to see us tackle are ones that I think you would expect to see us discussing. Obviously, bus capital, battery electric buses, and their really emergence. For the last 3 Sun meetings, we've talked about them, but it surely seems that now all of you are likely contemplating, if not already implementing, strategies to go electric. We'll have some sessions on that. I'll be hosting later on this afternoon a university partners session with 4 agencies who operate in cooperation with and in and around large universities. We've got a technology applications session that we're really excited about. Since the last time we met, CTAA competed for and won the National Center for Applied Transit Technology, and we'll be giving you links to all of what they've been up to. And one of the small urban systems we're working with in Bloomington, Indiana, Bloomington Transit, is a part of that session. We've got finance sessions and HR sessions, all those pieces that we've talked about. The legislative and advocacy piece for tomorrow, I'll be joined by Ed Redfern with the Bus Coalition and Rich Sampson from Southwest Transit Association, who was really at the heart of starting this conference many years ago. And we'll talk about kind of what's happened, what to expect, and ideally exchange some priority ideas. So a lot of good stuff for us to be tackling in the next couple of days. And we're excited about it. And I hope you are too. I like to talk to a lot of our smaller urban members leading into the Sun Conference, just to get a sense of kind of, what are the issues that you're all working with? And what are the issues that we need to be discussing here? And though I may be only speaking for myself in saying I'm a little bit tired of just talking about the pandemic and COVID-19, and from the previous slide, you'll see we're not going to exclusively focus on those issues, but at the same time, we have to address pieces of it. We simply have to. So we're going to talk a lot about kind of the COVID-19 reality. And let me raise some of the issues here that I've been hearing from our members about that I think warrant further scrutiny and discussion. And obviously there's the operational challenges that operating in a pandemic has brought to all of your operations, from the way you probably reduce service, to how you're bringing service back online, to essential only, to the PPE issues and safeguarding your drivers and passengers. I mean, it is true. What a difference a year makes. In Athens, Georgia last year at the Sun Conference, I don't think any of us thought this would be our new reality, but it is. We're obviously going to talk about CARES Act funding and be able to discuss how long each of you think your CARES Act funds are going to last, what you're doing, how you're spending those funds, how you're planning to maximize some of the funding flexibility that's been brought forward in the last 5 and 6 months that we've never seen before. How are you going to use that? How do you plan for what we're all going to be looking at the local and state in terms of funding levels? How do you plan for how you see your fare box revenues returning? All of these kinds of issues is part of that reality. And you know, one issue that I've heard a lot from members is capacity issues. And how do I maintain 6-foot distance, welcome back growing percentages of my ridership when I'm constrained by how many vehicles I have and I can't operate fully. And I only have so many vehicles to throw onto shadow routes. It's an important issue, and we'll be tackling a lot of those, and we'll be wanting you to share what you're doing with your colleagues here during the conference. You know, another issue that I think these next 2 bullets really fit together well and have proven that the relevance of transit agencies in these sizes coming together and developing a legislative platform and working along those lines has never been more critical than it is now. You know, if you look at the CARES Act funding and you look at the discussion between what we saw in the House's HEROES Act and the Senate's HEAL Act, and a lot of the discussion as it moves into a conferenced situation right now, well, the major metropolitan areas, their voices are being heard. The rural systems are as well, with their state DOT partners, I think, having a pretty aggressive voice. But this is where systems in this size often get overlooked. And it's a time where we absolutely cannot allow that to happen. So, you know, there are real benefits, and I think there are real value in the small urban transit space. Millions of riders a day, 350 some odd small urban areas spread all across the country, which means there are very few House districts and obviously no Senate offices that don't have small urban operators as part of their districts and as part of their constituencies. We've got to, in the run-up to getting this next tranche of CARES Act funding, we've got to make sure that your operations are not overlooked and are not kind of left behind right now. And it's a big concern for me that that we're looking at that. And so that's where, you know, partnerships and communication, I think, come to the forefront. And it's where CTAA as an organization wants to be a conduit to help. And we'll certainly touch on some of those issues tomorrow morning with the legislative stuff. But in the meantime, I think that what we'll want to do is figure out ways to not allow anything legislatively, whether it's reauthorization, CARES Act funding, appropriations. We can't allow any of that to occur anymore without a strong message from systems of this size. So that's going to be something, I think, for all of us to tackle as we move forward. You know, before I kind of move to questions and some kind of make sure everybody's clear on kind of how we're going to be running the rest of the conference, I wanted to just kind of have a brief commercial for CTAA. You know, there are many people registered, and we're glad you're here that aren't current CTAA members. And I really encourage those who aren't members to engage with the staff these next 2 days. If you have follow-ups from these meetings, make sure you talk to myself and other CTA staff colleagues directly. It's a great time to kick our tires and get a sense of what we do, and we want to encourage you to do that. For those of you who are already CTA members, just like to say thanks. We couldn't do this conference. We couldn't do the things we're doing for our membership, which is when you take in all of the individuals and organizations, around 1,300 members. We couldn't do this without our members. And our goal always is to provide the best value to you for your membership investment in us. And to both members and non-members, my message to you is engage with us. We can't fix issues and concerns we don't know about. But those of you who do engage with us regularly can vouch that we are very approachable people. We respond quickly, and we're a smaller organization, so we have to be able to be nimble and flexible, and you're going to find that in this organization. So the many ways you can engage with us in terms of us being here for you. I hope members getting fast mail, a member newsletter. We've got a blog that's constantly putting up new information, and I'm glad that many of you are using that. You'll see some links. We had some, Chris Zeilinger on the CTA staff put together, I think, a really interesting set of facts about small urban operations nationally that were made available to members. But mostly, it's like anything else in life, you get out of it what you put into CTAA. So again, engage with us. And at this point, Taylor, I don't know if you wanna read any questions that have come out. It's hard for me to keep up with them all. And I don't know how many have come in yet, but if you wouldn't mind, that'd be great.
Yeah, I think we're just waiting for a couple more to come in. Yeah, so if you have a question for Scott or anyone at CTAA, any questions about the Sun Conference, feel free to drop it in the chat box, and we would be more than happy to answer it. And yeah.
Well, while we're waiting, let me promote a couple of other things that are going on through CTAA that you may not be aware of. Tuesday, the acting administrator, Jane Williams, it will be having a members only dialogue with just CTA members. We're excited about that. She's going to talk obviously about all that FTA has been doing with CARES Act funds and kind of what we expect to see there. And later this month in August, Loria Lance, who you'll be hearing from later in the conference, our new membership director, is going to be working with state delegates and regional board members to hold some town hall meetings. So in kind of smaller groups, our members can tell us what they would like to see us focused on. And I do see a question from Tim in Corvallis, Oregon, which is, I think, the latest on CARES 2. Look, you guys have been, many of you are up on that. I'll be sharing tomorrow. Our goals and objectives in the next round of CARES Act funding was simply to make sure that any funds that flow to transit flow through the formula programs. Couple of reasons why we think that's important. One, it's the easiest way to distribute funding. These are funding streams that FTA already has established, that you already work within, that your staffs can work within. And two, there's a fairness piece that we've been reminding the Senate quite a bit over the last month. And that is that the formula funding programs guarantee that all systems get a fair share. We have been trying to argue for that. What I expect to see would be a certain amount of funding will go through probably a formula that will be set up to largely fund the most major systems in the country that are unfortunately hemorrhaging and have already run through, in some cases, all of their CARES Act money. I do think we're going to see that. The question is going to be what percentage is going to be reserved for that and what percentage is going to be left into the formula programs in a next round. And I don't really have a lot of insights on that yet, but there's a lot of discussions. I read a piece in the Post today that leadership in both the House and Senate do want to get transit funding into, we're going to call it CARES Act 2.0. I just hope that they recognize that there are many systems that are here in participating right now who also may not have already run out of CARES Act funding, but may be looking at running out of their CARES Act funding in this calendar year. And given what we're looking at, are going to need some formula, increased formula funding to do that. So thanks, Tim, for that question. I hope that answers it. LJ in North Carolina wants to know if has there been any discussion with FTA regarding COVID funding flexibilities and the new normal? Yeah, I think there's a large acknowledgement that FY21 funds, and you see this in the House passed bill that passed the full House last week, LJ, are gonna come to you at 100% federal, at least in FY21. We are all working to see if there's some ways to kind of move that, some flexibility on local share more permanently into the reauthorization. I'm not, that's going to be more of an effort, but one that I think we'll want to undertake. I think the thing that we've got to get in terms of the funding flexibility is there has to be some, I think, additional understanding of this period we're in right now, where the country is attempting in varying ways to reopen, and transit needs to be there to support that reopening, but there isn't a vaccine. And so this period we're in now, and I read as well as I know all of you do, that soon, hopefully at the end of this year, right at the beginning of 2021, we're going to see a vaccine and its availability and the types of numbers necessary to get to a real post-COVID-19 new normal. But in that interim period, I think the response of most of you, and in discussing this with CTA members, has been, I'm going to use my CARES Act funds to keep operating. And FTA last week was kind enough to share that 95-point-something% of all the CARES Act funds that they had worked with thus far that had gone out were being used exclusively for operating. The flexibility may come in later. All right, somebody's, I knew that would happen at some point in time. I see Lisa's got a question about CARES Act for 5310 and the likelihood of that. I can tell you that we've made that a priority, Lisa. We've talked to the Senate and we've talked to our partners at APTA and other organizations who are attempting and working in the same space we are, that we've got to see in a formula tranche in this next round, if there is going to be some of that going to 5310 operations that have not gotten anything here to date through the CARES Act funds. Likelihood, let's hope is the best I can say. And I know hope is not a really great strategy, but we're doing more than hope. We are communicating the need for 5310 to get its share, and have been very adamant that leaving them out has put those operations, particularly the ones that aren't also parts of 5307 or 5311 operations, has put them in real jeopardy. David Bruffy asks, has there been some national discussion about priority workers receiving a vaccine first? You know, I do think, David, that I would like to think that we learned from the first 6 weeks of the onset of the virus that when we designate our workforce as essential, that should have meant that we needed to have proper PPE and all that right from the get-go. And we're going to certainly be raising the issue that you raised, that let's not repeat that lack of preparedness as we get the vaccines. And that's a really important issue for us to bring forward. So I appreciate you raising that. Any other questions before we kind of turn it back over? So not seeing any. What we're going to be doing here then, as you will see, is in the chat box, you will get the next link. If you don't already have it, we're going to put it there as well. In this case, that link is going to take you to a coffee break with our sponsor, EchoLane. And I hope you will all take a little time to visit with our sponsors. And then we will be back for the next set of breakout sessions, which is going to be a separate link beginning at 12:45. So I see the messages. Taylor, you can see, is brought in that Zoom for the coffee break. Again, thank you for joining us. We are really, yes, thank you, L'Oreal. The coffee break will start at 12:15. So you have a little break beforehand to catch up on any emails and anything else. And we look forward to seeing you at the coffee break, and then back for our first set of system-wide breakouts beginning at 12:45 Eastern. So thanks, welcome, and we're looking forward to a great week here at the Sun Conference. Thank you.